Have you ever had a recruiter at a company email you, reach out to you about a job, you open it, you read it, you're excited about it, you respond back, but then they never reply back to you? And you're like, what is going on? You reached out to me and I respond and now you don't say anything back? Well, if that's happened to you, you are not alone. I've been in recruitment for 15 years and I can tell you this actually happens all the time. You're probably wondering why. Well, that's why we're here today. Today's video, I'm going to tell you exactly why that happens and what you can do about it. All right, let's get started. So I've been in recruitment for 15 years, and 4 of those years I spent in corporate recruiting, meaning I worked for a company and all the recruiting I did was for them. Now, agency recruiting is when you work for a recruiting agency and you recruit and you help a bunch of different companies fill roles. But what we're going to talk about here today is when a recruiter who works for a specific company reaches out to you about a job, you reply back with interest, and then you never hear from them again. They ghost you after reaching out to you. So confusing. But it actually happens all the time, and I'm going to tell you why. Now, it mostly happens because of 2 things. 1, time, and there not being enough time, and 2, a sort of shotgun style approach to candidate sourcing. Now, first things first, if you're going to answer this question, you need to start with what a recruiter does on a day-to-day basis at a company. Now, at a company where they have recruiters there, usually it's a medium to larger size company, enough where they actually need a recruiter. And if it's a small company, maybe an HR person just does this. Maybe they don't have a system. The hiring manager just does their own recruiting. But at a company that's big enough to have corporate recruiters, most of the time, they're going to have as few of them as possible. Because they don't generate revenue, they don't want to have a bunch of them. They only want to have a few. And they want those few recruiters to handle as much as possible. When I was a corporate recruiter, on average, I had between 25 and 40 roles I was recruiting on at any given time. For easy math, let's just assume I had 40 roles. How many hours a week do I get to spend on every single one of those roles? The answer is 1 hour. There is not enough time. So the first reason why this happens is because recruiters don't have a ton of time. If they work for a company, they're a corporate recruiter, they are usually very, very busy and they don't have enough time to do everything that they want to do on a day-to-day basis. Now let's talk about that shotgun method of sourcing. Now, because they do not have time, when they go out there and they're sourcing for candidates, which means they're reaching out to candidates on the market. Typically, this is done on LinkedIn or Indeed, sometimes traditionally Career Builder, Monster, Dice, other places like that, but mostly LinkedIn. Because they do not do this very often, most of them are not amazing at it. And they don't take a lot of care when it comes to sourcing. They try to find people who are close enough or qualified for the job, right? They're just trying to do it fast and get a whole bunch of people and send a whole bunch of the same messages to these people. Now, you probably have experienced this before, where you've gotten a message where you're like, that isn't a good fit for me. This person sent me a message about a job I'm not interested in or qualified for, or I'm overqualified. That happens because they're moving quick. It's a shotgun style approach. They source a whole bunch of people, send them the same message, and hope that enough of them respond that they have a candidate pool. Now, here's the thing. If you send out 1,000 messages, 100 messages, 200 messages, 50 messages, you're probably going to get a whole bunch of replies. But if you weren't accurate with your sourcing, some of those replies might be people who are not qualified. And that's what happens when a recruiter doesn't put the care into their sourcing and they get a whole bunch of people who may not be qualified for the job, but they reached out to them anyways. Well, sometimes those people respond. And when they respond, the recruiter then takes a deeper look at their profile and goes, this person isn't qualified. So then they do not respond to them. They don't reach out. Now, if they were polite, they would respond and be like, hey, my apologies. I sent you a message, but it looks like you're not qualified. But the reality is, a lot of them, they are not going to do that. They're going to reach out to a bunch of people. Some of them are going to respond. They're not going to be good fits, and they're going to ghost them. That is unfortunate. That is the reality. So if a company has ever reached out to you and you responded back and they didn't respond back to you, some of the time what is happening is they don't think you're as qualified as they initially thought. Another thing could happen if you are qualified, but they still haven't reached back out to you. Well, that happens because maybe they had a bunch of candidates respond back and they're going to cherry pick the 2 or 3 they consider to be best. So if you're not one of those 2 or 3 people, they're probably not going to go with you. They're going to go with what they consider to be the top people. Again, that's rude. If they took the time to message you and you took the time to respond, they should owe you a response. But they're not all going to do it because they're busy, and yeah, there's no excuse for that. That you should respond to people, but they don't, as you know. Now, the last reason this happens is sometimes they're going to reach out to people and you're not going to respond right away, right? Maybe you take a week. A week in recruiting is a lifetime. A lot of time what happens is they get enough responses, they talk to people quick, they get them in front of the hiring manager as quick as possible, and then they kind of move on and they're working on other roles. The reality is recruiters, corporate recruiters, are metriced on a few things, meaning they are evaluated on just a few things: fill rate and time to fill. There's other things they are evaluated on, but basically that's the most important stuff. So they are trying to move quick. So if you don't respond as fast as other candidates, they're moving on with other candidates. And that's the third and final reason why this happens. Now, I also said I would tell you what to do if this happened to you. The reality is, if a recruiter ghosts you, you're going to have a hard time getting them to respond to you. If you reach back out to them and they don't say anything, I would wait a week, then I would follow up again. And that's what I would do. And if it's a job that you feel really interested in and you are really qualified for, and they do not respond to you, then what I might do is I might go on the company's LinkedIn page, find the hiring manager, send them a request, and reach out to them personally and say, "Hi, I am interested in your job and I'd love to talk to you." And that is a great way to circumvent the recruiter, go around them if they are being unresponsive. There's nothing wrong with that. If they're unresponsive, you have to take matters into your own hands. Now, if you're watching this, you probably want to get as many interviews as possible so you can land a job. And if you are not using AI, you are at a massive disadvantage. That's why I made this video here. This video here has 4 different ways people are using AI to get a ton of interviews. So I'm done here, but I'll see you over there.